Oh, whoops. Ooh, sorry about that, everybody. That was a really poor transition there. Anyways, welcome back to the Fulfilling Destiny podcast, or FD podcast for short. I'm your host, Jan-Marini Pacleb, and today we are on our third episode of this podcast. Quick explanation before I bring in my guest for the night. FD podcast. Yes. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Anyways, before we continue on with today's episode, I just want to clarify a couple things. The second episode, which I do have with somebody else, I wasn't able to upload it because I was experiencing a lot of audio technical difficulties. But hopefully next week it will be up. I will take a break to focus on some other things while I try to figure out how to upload both the video version of this podcast and also upload it the same night or within the same day as for Spotify users, since this podcast is finally up on Spotify. So for the live episode, it'll be here on YouTube. Hopefully by tomorrow morning, I should have this episode also appear on Spotify if the viewers here are listening right now. I'm a little scatterbrained, to be honest. It's been a very long day. My mind's kind of going a little bit everywhere, but hopefully things will calm down, then my mind will focus to giving our guest the proper amount of attention that she deserves today. So tonight I am joined by Christa Soliven, and you could unmute yourself now, and then you could pop in and say hi. Unmute. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. This is Christa Soliven. She's a mentor of mine and a very, very close friend. And I want to share a little bit of our history before we hop into today's episode.
Me share the history, not you?
I mean, our history, how we met, where we're from.
Oh, yeah, I can share that history, how I tried to give you advice and you kind of blew me off and then came through.
I'm just happy that I'm not in direct contact with Mel.
You know,
our group don't need her too much.
It's
so
just
hold on. So if there is conversation that you can hear in the back, it's because Christa is currently living with a roommate, so she's currently having a conversation too. So it'll bleed in every now and then. So please be patient.
I'm sorry
with us.
about that. I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, so Jan started. She was brand new.
Yeah.
She was frustrated with herself. Sat behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And me being nice, I would just give her a few tips here and there. And she would kind of be like, I guess
No.
I guess that would work. Sure.
I'm cringing.
Well, that's how you were, and then what happened at the end?
Yeah, she's doing a
I
podcast.
told you
All
so.
done, guys.
I feel so exposed.
Hey, you asked me to tell how our friendship started, okay?
Fair enough.
And this is how it started. Because, you were fresh out of college.
Yeah.
Thought you knew your shit.
Oh.
Couldn't figure out how to get your numbers up, and you were frustrated as hell.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? I gave you tips. You finally listened to what I said. You applied yourself. And it worked. You finally reached production.
Oh. Yeah.
And then you got recruited to hospitals.
Woo-woo! Yeah. That's, yeah, you're right. I had a more prettier version, but it's just to make me look a little better, but obviously you get to tell it how it is, but, just like last week, CJ, who was on the show, Christa, we've all worked in the same company together for quite some time. And yes, that is how we met. I was I can't swear. I was about to say that. I was about to say a swear word. I was a little hot-headed and easily frustrated and very confused, and I didn't really know my place so much. But Christa really did help really loosen the tight screw on my head that I had, so I was a little bit more in check with myself and my emotions. So honestly, I am grateful to having you by my side. Especially even now, we actually talked about making a podcast together, and then here we
Yeah.
are. We're making an
Yeah.
episode together.
Yeah, making a podcast together was my idea.
Ta-da!
We talked about it a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Well, you're here
And
now.
then, all right, yeah. So,
This is just
what would you like to know from my brain? Since I am technically a free for all, I guess.
It is a little bit of a free for all, but since like our title for today is our herstory, I was thinking about how about we start on why we are talking about the specific topic today, and this is because excuse the conversation aside, the reason why
data training and rhythmic not being there. So
Gather yourself.
I'm trying to gather myself.
Process samples myself.
Let me actually meet you briefly.
I'm mostly either helping them.
So I can get this out so I don't laugh. Give me a second. Okay. As I was saying, the reason why we're bringing up our herstory today is actually because while we were going through our talking points for tonight, I actually didn't know a lot about women's health as from the history perspective of women, and then I didn't know how what's the right word for it? How recent it really started. So it was actually a little bit eye-opening because I didn't realize that this was actually happening within about a generation. So not just mine, but literally while my parents were alive. So this is actually an eye-opener for me. So it's like, well, we might as well take me on a brief lesson on what have women as a whole accomplished in terms of their health and how the world looks at them now in terms of, like I said, their health or education and what we could do about it now in the future as we go through some very rapid changes in, I guess, like in our government when it comes to our women's health. So that's the reason why we're calling it our herstory today. See how in all of these changes. I'm gonna unmute you again, Christa.
I think I'll just use the spacebar to temporarily unmute myself.
Oh, the push to talk?
Yes. I think that would be working best.
Okay, no, that's completely fine. So, I have my reading notes here. But anyways, so we'll start with 1896, the first had. So I've actually only knew about it because of I believe it was World War One, that the idea of nurses using wound linens to pack wounds for wounded soldiers that could be used to hold in periods really well, as opposed to using cloth or dirty rags or anything someone could grab their hands on. So it was actually by the way I'm reading it here is Kotex. Kimberly Clark's company introduced Kotex. So it's actually a brand that I use. You buy Kotex. But I knew that was it, but I didn't realize how recent that was. 1896. Kind of within our history, in about 100 years. So that was actually really cool. And then 1933, Dr. Earl Haas, if I'm butchering their names, I'm so sorry, created the first disposable tampon. 1933, so that's about 80 years ago, which is actually pretty interesting. Christa, did you actually know about any of these? As far as
I knew it was around in the early 1900s, but I didn't know exactly what year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know pretty much what they were using beforehand, which was they just would never go outside during that week. They would literally stay home and just kind of free bleed or
You're fine.
use a specific type of underwear to use that they use and wash like all the time.
Oh, especially when to my knowledge, in terms of the social structure, uh, women weren't really working at the time. They mostly stayed at home, so it was a little bit more convenient to stay at home to like hide the the moment that they started menstruating. But the washing, probably like from personal experience, like it's really hard to do, especially if the material that you use to catch your menstruation is faulty, or it's just not placed properly, and it stains your clothes. So having to scrub it all the time was frustrating. And I'm glad that they figured out that they could use bandages for other means other than keeping wounds closed and to stop bleeding. So that's pretty creative on their part. But I know that it wasn't perfect yet. It really wasn't perfect yet until much later, if we're thinking about terms of comfort, thickness, and then length, because there's different sizes for those who don't know about pads. So that was actually something that I didn't know, and it's kind of sad to think about that there was a time, then there was centuries where we could spend days menstruating and there was nothing that we could do to catch it. And that's just a thought I don't really want to think about. It's just, it gives me chills down my spine, the idea of like kind of like letting it free flow.
You mean free bleed? There's
Free
actually
bleed.
a lot of people who are practicing that now.
Now, really, do tell.
I know there was a woman that ran a marathon and she was on her period and she free bled throughout the entire time. So there's actually pictures of her online somewhere. I like I don't know what her name is, I forget, but if you search like free bleed marathon, the pictures of her with blood running down her legs
That was horrible.
is around there.
Really? Okay, so it says, I'm taking a look right now. It's on cosmopolitan.com if those who are interested. Her name is Kiran Gandhi. She trained for her first marathon. I'm just reading this really briefly. And she decided to free bleed the whole marathon, finishing at about 5 hours. And whoa, she was really serious. I was not expecting that. Wow. There's even pictures
I
about
told
it.
you. I mean, like that ending picture is like that's like gold right there.
Yeah, it's literally. So I'm just gonna read an excerpt from the site itself. This is the interviewer asking. It's interesting that you're wearing pants that show the blood. Had you opted to go with black pants, it maybe wouldn't have shown quite as much. And this is her response. I'm funny that way. I really love that those pants matched my shirt. I felt really superstitious about the whole thing. I had planned this outfit. We were running for breast cancer, so I really wanted to represent that from head to toe. I wanted it to be bright. I feel good in bright clothing. It felt really celebratory. If I were to bleed through, I really wholeheartedly believe that at least on a marathon course, no one can say anything.
Was right. No one can say anything. She's a woman. She's on her period. What is she going to do? Stop in the middle to change her pad or tampon? She can't.
Yeah, like that's essentially, that was the follow-up question, was that the interviewer was asking, well, people do go to the bathroom while they're doing a marathon because you can, right? If you want to.
Yes.
And
yes,
then
you literally pee or move your bowels while running.
yeah. So free bleeding. It looks like she didn't even know that she was until it happened.
Well, sometimes she probably was stressed out that she was going to run this marathon and stress causes it to stop for a few extra days and might as well it looks like it was her second day, seeing how much she's going she's kind of showing there.
Yeah, it's
but yeah.
I like what she said here after, is that she would rather show the confidence of that this is her body, this is normal, that this is going to happen, that she doesn't want to hide or clean up whatever was going on because of someone else's comfort. So that's actually a real good point, because my thought, this was like just instant thought reaction when it showed her photo of her finishing the marathon with her stained pants. My first thought was, why didn't she wear black? It's just instinct that usually when I'm on my period, this is just my personal reaction to it, is that normally I would try to wear black on the week or the day that I'm expecting to start. I usually wear black in case it bleeds through, so I don't embarrass myself. But that's a cultural thing, and that's something that I was raised on. So for my brain to look at this woman who is proud, or she doesn't care, and I in my thoughts saying you should have wore black, it's really messed up, and that's wrong of me to think about it in that way. So this is good for her that she's not ashamed about it, and then it's like it's going to happen, and I can't stop her even if I wanted to. It's like I can't tell her to change. That's wrong. So good for
Well,
her.
yeah, it's also it's supposedly a social norm that you
Mhm.
think that way, because
Mhm.
socially we have all these rules that are applied to us women and men also.
Mhm.
But just knowing that these unspoken rules are supposedly what grounds us as our kind of, I don't want to say community, but more like at a national level.
Mhm.
It's throughout the country pretty much.
Mhm.
And also, like, why can't she free bleed if someone's gonna just urinate?
Yeah, it'd be no different, really. If someone decides to urinate freely while they run a marathon, or they defecate, you can't ask them to change. Like, they're gonna choose whether they want to change or not, but if they don't want to, they can't. They don't have to. It's just
Yeah, but
it just looks down bad. Mm-hmm.
my only issue is that, imagine the chafing though.
Oh, are you talking in terms of like dried blood?
Blood, urine.
Ooh, hi dog. Yeah, that's what I think about too, is that actually fulfilling destiny, if you don't, at least for viewers who don't follow the Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, is that there was a image, is that you, for those who have access to these care products, that you should change every 4 to 6 hours if you're using a pad in this case, uh because blood thickens and then it becomes uncomfortable,
Flaky.
flaky, and it becomes uncomfortable, and then you could get chafing, and you could get very itchy, and then it's gonna smell, uh depending on how heavy your flow is. So they encourage people to change quite frequently, but then, like I said to an earlier point, is that not a lot of people have access to these chains. So having something free flow and then not being able to clean regularly must be very, very, very uncomfortable, especially for this marathon runner. That's a 5 hour run that she just did, about a 5 hour run that she just did. So she must have been very uncomfortable. That's what I'm thinking about. It's not a good feeling. So
Yeah, but also she probably has that runner's high by
so she
that
didn't feel
point.
anything.
Yeah, she probably didn't feel anything at all.
It's that's sometimes, like, when you're in the moment, it's just going to happen, and then it's kind of like my future me problem. That's her future me problem after the race was over, and then she finished her interview. It's like, okay, now I'm gonna go deal with this. I'm gonna get cleaned up and uh continue the rest of my menstruation as if it's normal. But that was something that I didn't know that someone actually did willingly. How long ago was this, actually? Now that I think about it, before I move to the next
I
thing.
know it was like fairly recent. I think it was like
Yes, I
no
was
more
like,
than like
but then
5
again,
years.
It's about 5 years ago, August 6th, 2015. So
Yeah, see, it's about like just about fairly new.
it is fairly recent. And then for this next kind of like viral news dealing with menstruation was like I said, I saw this recently. I mentioned with you. Actually, I mentioned to my cousin a couple hours ago. This was in June 2019. Is that there was her name is Gabrielle Schlegel from
Schlegel.
22 from Alberta, Canada, and her she uses
Oh wow.
her menstrual
Wow.
yeah. So
Oh goodness.
she's using her menstrual blood to do artwork. And a little bit more about her is from the article that I got from Daily Mail. Uh, uh,
Daily Mail.
the Daily Mail. Uh, she got her period when she was 13, which is I believe is a little average. She was scared to tell her mother, and she felt embarrassed and felt that her monthly bleed was a burden. And so apparently, according to this article, uh, at one point, Gabriel's time of the month became painful, which can be an issue for some girls who felt cramps or like really sharp pains while they're menstruating. So she decides to use her menstrual blood every month to create paintings and as well as using it as a face mask. Okay, I definitely did not know that part. I just knew that she did art and not
There's a
also painted.
video.
I would
Oh
play
my
the
god,
video.
it's all on her hands.
Oh,
Oh
oh,
goodness.
yeah. So
Some women actually have such bad menstrual cramps
mhm.
that they can't physically move at all.
Is that in? I'm just gonna ask you, just to ask you. Is that the same in your case? Like you can't really move, or is it just throbbing?
Actually, it's not me. I knew a friend in high school that when she would always have like 1 or 2 days a month where she wouldn't be in school, and it's usually on the first few days of her period.
Mm-hmm.
She says she can't. She gets a migraine. She gets dizzy. She her cramps are just like crippling her. So
Oh,
yeah, it was pretty bad for her.
that's quite terrible. I don't think I've had relatively terrible pain like that. I just know that sometimes I could double over and hold myself for like 2 minutes, like okay, it's fine, and I could walk. For those rough like first 2 days, and then after that, like I'm fine. But it's been I know that I like you said, I have a friend too who would be bedridden and she would actually miss classes for a week just couldn't get out of bed and painkillers and a hot like a hot water compress wouldn't do it for her. So that's another thing to think about. Anyways, like back to Gabriel's story. So sorry, Gabrielle. Gabrielle's story is that she uses her her body to connect with what her body wants and needs. So she uses aspects of the womb, the vagina, and the vulva, and she says that she enjoys investing time in making something beautiful of what she says society has conditioned us to believe is the opposite. Which, like you said earlier, it could be similar to how social norms and cultural norms has enforced that things that uh deal with women's bodies outside of sex or pregnancies are gross and weird and you don't talk about it. So, it's uh the feelings of dirtiness and shame as a teenager, I felt as though my period was a great nuisance. So, that's sad. And I like to think that that was how I felt about my period growing up was that I didn't like it because I felt unclean and I didn't like how it made me feel because I have like ups and downs when it comes to the hormonal changes alongside it. And I definitely didn't like the implications of someone like looking at me and they know that I'm like a little off and they're like, you're on your period. Are you going to PMS too? Are you going to give me a hard time? And I'm just like, oh, dude, shut up. Don't give me that right now. Like, yes, I'm on my period. No, I'm trying to keep myself normal without lashing out so I don't feed into the bad stigma of like a woman going on PMS because she's on her period. It's stupid. But I don't know, that's the same in your experience too, Chris. If I know that I had hard days coming to work because I would be feeling pain and I would just sit in the bathroom for like 15 minutes trying to gather myself
Is
before
that
going
what
back to
you're
work.
doing there at work?
Yes, actually, hold on, I need to cough. Okay, for for the times I've actually had to be in the bathroom for longer than 10 minutes, aside from doing other business, sometimes it is really just to keep the pain in check because I actually don't really use painkillers like Tylenol to help clear it. Normally, I just drink a lot of water and avoid foods that are like really greasy. Usually, that helps me feel better about my period after like the second day, which to me is probably the hardest day for me. But I don't know if that's the same for you in your case.
Oh boy. Well, when I first got mine for the first time, it scared me, but that's because of the way I was raised and what I knew in my head and what was supposedly expected of me because of I was being groomed. I there's This is a
Oh,
whole nother topic, but yeah, so you know, I was sexually abused as a child, and he things were being said to me that when this happens, certain things are going to happen, and that scared the crap out of me. So I didn't know what to do. And once once I got older and cramps started happening, it was
Yeah, it
bad.
was one.
so I see, I see. Sorry, I didn't really mean to bring up such a heavy topic about it, but
I'm fine talking about it. It's
mhm.
just I know this is just my intro
uh,
podcast.
yeah.
There's many times where I'll be open to talk about it and
Mhm.
talk about be positive about it and make sure that people know that there's resources out there for them for situations they've gone through or going through.
Mhm.
So I'm willing to talk about that in the future. It's just part of my story. I'm
Mhm.
okay about it.
Okay.
I know this is not the time to talk about it.
Okay. No, no, no. It's just for those things. Thank you for opening up, especially for that part. I didn't know that the start of, I guess, like menstruating for you was tied to something like that. I didn't know that, and sorry I brought it up like this. Um,
Oh no, it's fine. I mean, it's something that I grew up with, and there's nothing I can change about my past. I can
mhm.
only look to the future and try to kind of help myself mentally because
Mhm.
that's why I'm in therapy too. So I can talk about that as well.
Mhm. Okay. Well, like I said, thank you for sharing a part of that part of your menstruation history. And because of things like that, for those who are listening, if you are ever in a situation, this is just my personal insert. I will send links down below. Is that if you ever feel like you're going through situations like this and you need to find help, there are ways that you could do that. There are hotlines, anonymous hotlines that you could reach. You reach out to friends and family who you could trust and who could care for you. And then, if all else fails, remember, please call your emergency hotline number 911 for these things. And there are people out there who could share your pain, and we would like for you to be safe, especially even in times like these, especially if you are menstruating and you are unsure and you are confused. There are resources out there to help you. Okay, so that's just my insert for that. So we'll go ahead and move along to our next
Whoa, what was that picture? Was that a picture of a cup of?
a cup of her. Yes. So
Oh goodness gracious, that's
yes.
wow.
So back
Whoa.
so back to Gabriel. So this is kind of like her process is that she would collect it through a menstrual cup. Uh Another insert here. Uh there's going to be a episode just about types of material used to catch menstruation. But that's a different topic for another day. But if only my viewers could see this right now. The way that Gabriel, I keep saying her name wrong. Saying Gabriel's of Gabrielle. So Gabrielle uses a menstrual cup to catch her blood, and then she dries it so it's like a paste. I believe you could add water into it, and then you use it to paint. And it looks.
Oh, well,
You'd
then,
use
no,
that,
Sorry.
like that Filipino traditions, like when you get your first period, you put it on your face to fight acne.
I actually did not know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Really, I did not know. To fight
Yeah,
acne.
no, I didn't do it, but my roommate did. Her mom made her do it.
Is it just a? Is it like a rite of passage, like traditional?
Yes, yes, it is. And I actually know some other people who've done it from the
Mhm.
Philippines, or like their parents were like super traditional and they made them do that. Whoa, is that
This
a rose?
it's a rose
Um,
and
the moon.
the moon. So she mentions that it's a lot of things. A lot of references dealing with Mother Earth and the moon, and this is a art history insert. Is that the moon, Mother Earth, and even roses are all symbols relating to
Womanhood.
womanhood, exactly. So when women, or at least in my opinion, when I was learning art history, when women make a lot of references to things, it's that a lot of them are trying to connect back to their essence of being a woman, and it's an empowering art theme to look at. And actually, there is a book that I would recommend for others to read if they have the time and they'd like to check out. Is that Witches, Midwives, and Nurses: Complaints and Disorders by Barbara Ehrenreich and Ditcher English. Uh, it's a history book about why women who started off as healers in the olden times and how it changed to men dominating the health industry, even about women's health, and that women are getting slowly pushed out of the picture when it comes to uh, reproductive health, child rearing, and even and stuff like gynecology. So that is actually a book I would recommend for those to read because it's quite interesting to see that we our societies at some point had matriarchies, and then it shifted towards ideals of patriarchy. And some could agree or disagree with me about that women are still struggling under ideals of patriarchy here in America. But that's another topic for another day. But I recommend that book for future knowledge. Anything you want to say about that, Krista?
Yes, there's actually one book I want to mention, but
Oh, is it
it's
that? Is
yeah,
it
it's
that's that book that has a
I
swear word in it?
yeah, I'm gonna say this just once. Okay, hold on. Let me find the author so that way we can
Oh, we can refer to that. Okay, so let me know when you're ready. But after that, I wanted to transition into. Oh, so let me take a look. Ah, okay, I did not know that. So let me. Thank you, Editor Son, for letting me know. I thought I turned off the music. So, uh, not sure if you were able to hear on the over the sound of my voice, but so sorry. Is it just now? Oh, gee. Oh, that is a very explicit word. I don't think I could say this live. Can I spell it? I think that would be fine if I spell it. If I can't say it.
Yeah, I think spelling it would be okay. I mean, it rhymes with bunt cakes.
Okay, hold on. Let me check what Editor Son says. It's a little bit of a big yikes. So, like I said, some books that we recommend. Before I say the title, let me give you the synopsis. It's a 1998 feminist book by Inka Musio. Musio?
Museo.
Musio.
Museo.
Musio. That is called for a breakdown in the boundaries between women and sexuality. In it, the writer hopes to reverse the negative connotations behind female prerogatives, perjuratives. The book transverses subjects such as menstruation, rape, and the competition between women. So, women dogging on women, I believe.
Yes, the competition for specific jobs or for a specific guy to be married, because some men prefer to have multiple women and have them fight over them. They do some men do that on purpose.
Some men do, or and also like in media, from movies that we've seen growing up. But that's a topic for another day. Okay, so I will spell out the title, and I'll put the link down below.
Title, yeah, the title and the author as well, because it's a little different.
It's a little different. So it's CUNT, A Declaration of Independence by Inge Musio. Okay, I'll not say the name on here, but yes, there is your title. I will link it down in the description down below. Okay. But
I've owned this book. I've read through it. It's an amazing book. It has a lot of great stories, and also one of the stories that really stood out was about this woman not woman, but this child who's discovering her body, and she asks her mom about what's this, what does it do, what's gonna happen to it when I get older, and the mom just explained to her how this is where babies are created, and this is where you came from.
So it's a very, not necessarily explicit, it's a very detailed explanation a mother gave to the child about these changes in her body. You said that was part of the story inside the book.
Yeah, it's a collection of different stories and stuff like that, and they're all tied together by the author, and it's just great. There's a lot of different things from it. It's been years since I've read this book, and surprisingly, this book did get stolen off of my bookshelf. Like, I lent it to someone and they never returned it, and I asked them about it, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, this book is actually a really good, really good read, and that's why I recommended it to someone to read, because it's just a great book.
It sounds a lot like a book that I read when I was a teenager, about changes in my body, right? Especially approaching puberty. This is just the title of the book that I was reading at the time, the Chicken Noodle Soup for a Girl's Soul.
Oh yes.
It was a good book to read, but like you said, it wasn't really like explicit on how this came to be, how this was important. Like, I knew in class when we were studying anatomy, like in college or in high school, like very briefly about what certain body parts do, and I know I did too, that students can keep a straight face, and teachers do try their real best to not crack jokes about it. But having a book like this, like the name above, would be a good book to read in case that you want to hear stories where women are more blunt about it. I would love that, more bluntness.
Yeah, that, and it was kind of a way of taking the word back, taking it from such a negative connotation. And also it inspired the third wave feminist movement in the 90s, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of people had these festivals called Sea Fest.
Okay,
actual word, but fest. But yeah, so it's pretty cool. I mean, can I say that word?
And which word? Type it in chat before we can say it.
Okay. Oh yeah. I hold on.
I don't want to give my directors or founders a bit of a scare later. We're trying to be really careful about what we're able to say. Ray did explain that I can't swear on this, especially as a host. Oh, I don't think you could definitely say that. Oh no.
It's weird because we technically should be able to, but at the same time, it's those standards that we have to abide. But sometimes it's just certain words they get leeway, and I have a feeling these are types of things that have leeway, but I know we're not too sure about that yet.
Yeah, we're not too sure. I would have to ask later on, and especially since I know these are words that have power in a good and in a bad way, depending on asking. Like for women, we could use some of these back, power into. I guess even, and then uh, but then
Oh, and don't forget the B word.
and the well, yeah, the B word as well. But at the same time, like that, those words have been used against us, especially when people are upset, even from other women, family members, friends, co-workers, colleagues. Those words have been used. Every known, every known swear word that is related to a woman has been used. It's not great either. So as much as I would love to say these on air, I don't think I can. But to those who know, uh, it's it can be hurtful being on that for reasons that are hurtful. But like you said, so this book brings the third wave of the feminist movement, and then that people are trying to take back power with using these words for these festivals. Krista?
Yes. Sorry.
Depends.
Right. No. That's perfectly okay. But like I said, so these are some of the books that we recommend those who would like to read about women empowerment and even the history of how we even came to this point in women's empowerment. Please go ahead and take a look at the description down below. I might have to update it, however, to add Krista's insert. But yeah, like I said, these are some good books to read. And then speaking of books and literature, uh I guess we could switch into some like themes that I don't for the last last 15-20 minutes, is that I wanted to talk about a little bit of how women are perceived in society. We had a brief discussion about this earlier, Krista, last week about it. Um, I just realized that this has another bleeped word too. um, the idea of the mother, the Madonna, or the W word here. Hold on.
You can say Magdalena.
Magdalena.
Taking it biblical right there, right?
Taking it biblical right there. I actually don't know much about it. I need to brush up on my Catholic history. But anyway,
Loud sigh.
I know. I didn't really listen that much when I was in catechism. But that's another tougher thing, because I have a lot that I could say about it in terms of my personal experiences going through catechism. But so this was actually something that I've noticed when I was learning art history, that a lot of images about females at the time, if we're taking the Renaissance for example, a lot of depictions of females have been depicted as virginal or saintly, like they are pure, they cannot ever be touched, and that they're
Or
free from
tainted.
or tainted, right? And then on the offhand, like if you take other portions of history like Cubanism or I forgot what it's other contemporary forms of art, is that when women are depicted as, I'm trying to say this lightly, when women are depicted in sexualized scenes, or that they were prostitutes, they were depicted as something dirty and vile, and they were not drawn flat, like in flattering ways that they looked scary like witches. And I was just like, oh, so that's something to think about. And then through this article that I think I have also linked down below, Lisa Firestone, PhD, are we still condemning women for their sexuality? And the reason why she says is that we're put into kind of like categories. Like you're either someone who's like the Madonna, uh someone who's in between, or you're the mother, like the Virgin Mary, or you are a W word here. There's no in between, even though really women can be whoever they want to be. They hear as they want with very pure ideals and everything in between. And then you could be as free.
Be a wonton. You can be a wonton.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means. Yeah, a wonton is the original way, like a word for that, and it's also a W word.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to describe it without making it seem like I'm condemning those who are more open about it, who are more open about their
Or
needs.
more, it's not about their needs; it's their livelihoods.
Mm-hmm. Their livelihoods, a little bit more free form, and how they want it. If they like it, they'll take it, type of thing. Very go getters versus someone who would rather practice like prudence or chastity. Um, a lot of literature or artwork has put women in these boxes, which is definitely not appropriate. Because
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Because what was I going to say? That if you think about it,
They call
I'm sorry.
No, it's like I said, it's one of the things about doing podcasts online, and we can't do this in person because we are also in a pandemic right now, and then we have to stay separated from each other, obviously, to keep each other safe. And then like I said, I can't always account for roommates to be home or family, and it's going to happen. So thank you for muting and unmuting yourself when it's needed. I'm greatly appreciated.
Yeah. And I didn't know she was gonna have a happy hour tonight with her coworkers. So
It's I mean, it's not 5 o'clock anymore, but it's a Friday night, so people are gonna be home. They're gonna try to enjoy the start of their weekend, especially since it's after hours for the normal like 9 to 5, 9 to 5 worker right now in America.
yeah. Oh, did you know that
Sorry,
prostitution is actually one of the oldest careers in the world?
I heard it was the first above anything
Yes.
else.
I mean, yeah, it would make sense because if you think about it, how long has humans been around, and how long has humans been bartering for things, for foods, for objects, for homes, whatever? They've been bartering forever, and then after bartering was payments, actual money.
So then this was first.
Yes, it just makes sense. I mean, the fact that these in the history of humankind, women are seen as specific beings, but those women who actually they're probably condemned because these women are making money for themselves. They're not relying on men to make them happy to be able to reach have a wage, because being a woman and having a wage was looked down upon. It's kind of like demasculating the men, which kind of makes sense now. I'm having like epiphanies in my head going off, but it makes sense to why these men kind of condemn these women for making career for themselves.
And it's not always as dark as it would seem, because at like in terms of history, that could be a little bit blurry at the farther we go back. Like some were forced into it, some were not. Some, like you said, they take charge in it. They could make money for themselves. That's not reliant on dowries or like their fathers or their husbands paying for their living expenses and stuff. So that's actually pretty surprising. I know it was a phrase thrown around a lot, but according to Wikipedia, yes, I use Wikipedia. It actually wasn't used as a phrase until 1889 by Mr. Kipling, a story, and then it wasn't really used until after World War One. So that's just another insert here. So aside from the standard jobs back in the day, cattle drovers, horticulturalists, barbers, engineers, landscape gardeners, the military, doctors, nurses, teachers, priests, and lay preachers and lawyers back in the day, prostitution was a profession that was as old as these other professions. And that's actually pretty surprising. I didn't really think about it. I really only heard, I guess, the profession of prostitution, uh, only in like England, like early England, like during Jack the Ripper time, or at least the legend of Jack the Ripper, in that sense. As far as
That's the 1800s.
yeah, the 1800s. As far as like going way, way, way back as like early trading days, I didn't really think about it too much in that sense, only because of I was really thinking about marriages and dowries. Nothing outside of that. But that's a ooh, outside outside the the house. But this is a it's educational for me, at least for today, because there's a lot of these links that I will post later down below fully is that I actually don't know too much about history or herstory in this case. You only really get to look at history in the eyes of victors, and in this case, it tends to be males. Males at one point wrote how our bodies worked and why we felt different ways. They explained my body to me, which is the door. Which is
And then on top of that, like, who's fighting for women's rights right now? All this things going on with our
current
facilities, right? For women's health. Who's talking about it the most? Men. Who's protesting it the most? Men. So it's kind of strange to see it that way, but that's the truth.
It wasn't until this book I haven't found the book title of it. Oh, that is bad on me. Give me a quick second while I change that thought. There is a book also I want to add down. I believe it's already in the description down below. Our Body, Ourselves. It's a book that was written in 1970. So it's actually not that long ago. It's a group of women in, I believe, Boston, who wrote about the many aspects of women's health. So this is according to the Wikipedia. I will read at the end of the podcast. It talks about aspects of women's health and sexuality, including sexual health, sexual orientation, gender identity, birth control, abortion, pregnancy, and childbirth, violence and abuse, and menopause. So what's really important about this book is that it is a health book made by women for women. In in comparison to before that, the majority of gynecologists at the time were men, and all the studies dealing with menstrual health, women's health in overall was written by men, and which is kind of scary to think about. Is that someone who doesn't have the body parts that I have is telling me why I feel a certain way, and that it's the same for every woman out there, which is really untrue. But yeah, so that is a book that I would recommend too. It'd be interesting, interesting read, because it was revolutionary because it talks about a lot of things that women have been kind of shunned against to talk about. Shunned against? What's the right phrase for this? My English is not working with me today.
English, Jen, English.
I'm working on it. Hold on. Let me gather my thoughts. Women are kind of shied away from talking some of these topics, right? The ideas of reproductive rights, sexuality, and sexual independence, right? Even like how our bodies work. A lot of those things we don't talk about, and it's not open to talk about because it's weird. It's obviously it's just weird because we're expressing something that we're hoping someone else could understand. I want to tell you what's going on in my body. Please don't look at it as weird. Like if I'm going to share that I'm mentoring with another female, I'm hoping that other female can understand what I'm going through. Like I'm on my period today and it hurts. Can you help me? The last thing I want is for someone to be like, ew, like, oh, it's your problem. Like your body, your problem. It's like I'm looking to you to help me. It's like, do you have pads? Do you have a tampon? Do you have a cup? Do you have Tylenol on you? Do you have any ways to help deal with this nauseating feeling that I have inside of me right now. So having this book out there now, written by women for women, it's pretty revolutionary. And I'm sad to say that I haven't read it sooner. So actually, I will after this podcast. So if you'd like to read this book, one of the big pioneer books about women's health, please check out the link down below. It's called Our Bodies, Ourselves, written by the Boston Women's Health Book Collective. It's actually a very long author name. But like I said, group of women in Boston wrote this book for women out there who want to know more about themselves. I highly suggest that. You know, I just realized that this podcast is mostly just about books, books and art. Time to update
Great, because that's what I like.
Time to update the description later. So it's like, today on our history in art and writing, in literature. But I know that
it's literally the only way we can get into our history, to be honest.
Like snapshots.
So it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, the first time we fought, like women in general fought for their rights is in the early 19th century for their rights to vote.
Oh yeah, you did mention that last time.
Yeah, the suffrage. Yeah, and a good example. Yeah, the women's suffrage. And the one time we really actually see that in our media, the very first time is in the 1960s. When? Oh, Mary Poppins. Yes, I just brought Disney into this mix.
We're not sponsored by Disney, by the way.
No.
So, explain to me your thought process, including Mary Poppins.
So, for Mary Poppins, the father was a banker. The mother, she was a suffragette. There you go.
Suffragette.
So you know, she wore the sash. She even had a song in there just to talk about how women's rights were very important. And you know, it kind of like it just made sense. It just kind of like happened that way. And I don't know what Disney was thinking about adding that song and adding the fact that women are very important and doing this. Maybe it's because of the time period that he wanted this to be taking place, or who knows what, but that's what Disney did.
Sounds
so
like a good
it's
day
very
for you.
interesting. It's just very interesting, yeah.
Okay. I think I've explained this to you before. Maybe like in an earlier conversation when we weren't talking about this podcast, is that I barely watch Mary Poppins though. Spoonful Sugar is probably the only song I know, other than the very long word that I can't probably say.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious?
Yes, that one. The S word. The very, very long S word. But
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I don't want to get copyright, so we can't say more. But
no, it's just a title. I'm not saying it.
Never mind. Anyways, but like I said, this wow, my train of thought. I am so sorry for everyone who's listening right now. Like I said, it's been a very long week, calming down now. But as far as today's show, for those who have any questions or comments or concerns about, go ahead and let me know, especially since it's live on YouTube and this eventually recorded, posted on platforms. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you like. Do you agree with some of the topics that we talked about? Do you disagree? I would love to know all of them, because it's very important for me to learn as this show develops, and it's also important for the people that I will report to about this, because it's like, this is a platform that I would love to talk more about women's health as a whole, obviously dealing with issues with homelessness, menstruation, period poverty, and everything in between. I just want to make sure that this is a informational podcast, and it's a place that we could all learn something new. And you sent me a link to YouTube, so let me take a look. What is this? What have you shown me? Sister Suffragette. I don't believe I could play it here because it will be recorded on my audio. I'll be sure to look at this after about it. So while I take a quick look at Mary Poppins. But since we are coming at the hour mark, just want to let everybody know now that after this episode ends, it will be recorded again the day after for any other audio fixes that I come across through. And then hopefully by tomorrow, this will also be uploaded on Spotify and other podcast platforms that you or you, the viewer, may have at your disposal. And then as far as closed captions are concerned, I try to get them out by the end of the weekend. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to take me some time because I do these myself, and I do have a couple friends who could help me work on this as well. Okay. So, Krista, any last closing comments about today's podcast? How did you feel about it today? Oh, probably her roommate is talking and chatting. Actually, since Editor Son is here, Editor Son, how did you feel about today's episode?
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I wasn't clicked on the Zoom there.
No, it's okay. I was gonna ask you, like, how did you feel about today's episode? Before we go ahead and wrap up. You're muted again.
I know. My roommate was talking. So,
Very
so, so I'm glad about this podcast. I mean, if anyone has any questions, shoot Jan. Any questions about sexuality or anything, I'm open to talk about it. If anything, because I know that when I'm on, it's kind of a free for all in a sense, because I know a little bit more than what Jan knows, and I like to.
You like to poke my brain. You like to poke my brain when we have
I do
this.
like to poke your brain, and I like to, blow your mind away.
You do blow my mind. That's why I'd love to have you on another week as well, because I know that we had talks about having you online for multiple episodes, because you are more knowledgeable than me for about some of these things that I've either ignored or I've just been ignorant to, just like for some of these topics that we talked about today. So it's, like I said, it's a learning moment for me, and it could be a learning moment for some of our viewers who are listening, and especially you, Editor Son. I hope you're listening as well. Just putting that out, he gives me a head nod, so that tells me a lot. But yeah, like I said, if you had any questions for Krista and I, please let us know. And then is there anything that you want us to bring quick attention to, Krista, as far as next week, or anything that you look forward to in terms of just the news in general? Let's end it on a happy note.
And on a happy note, a happy note, huh?
Happy note.
Oh, so I do have one question for you, Jen. What flavor was that popsicle you were eating earlier?
So before I was live, I was eating a popsicle because it's actually pretty hot where I'm at right now. It's actually, say this, Luna strawberry. I highly recommend it if you're nearby an Asian market. It's very sweet. You could put it in a smoothie, or you know, for those who are old enough to drink, I highly recommend trying it with some alcohol as well. But other than that, yeah, soju. Or
I also had strawberry ice cream today as well at this place called Molly Moon's Ice Creamery
in Washington.
Yes, it was located in Capitol Hill, right next to Cal Anderson Park, where the protests happened here in Seattle.
Well, unfortunately, we can't talk about that so much because I do have a separate. I think I do have a separate for talks.
Okay,
about that.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, like, it was just very interesting actually walking around that area, up and down that street, for the first time, really.
Since it happened.
Yeah, and like going through Cal Anderson Park and seeing so much graffiti, so much, but a lot of it is positive stuff. So it's pretty interesting.
To promote community building and stuff. And like,
sure.
I wasn't entirely sure, but I would say let's go with that for now.
Yes.
Other than that, some other good news I would like to share for our viewers who stuck around for this long is that thank you for the 32 subscribers who followed on YouTube, thank you so much for giving this podcast a chance. And then for those who found out about this showing up on Spotify, thank you for also following on Spotify. I don't have the numbers with me, unfortunately. I don't have access to it. But for those who followed, thank you. Thank you so much for giving this a chance. Like I said, I have a lot more episodes planned for this. And then if anything, if you'd like to hop on this show with me, have a conversation about a topic that you're interested about women's health, dealing with homelessness, period poverty, please let me know.
Don't forget about women's sexuality.
And women's sexuality. For those things, check out my YouTube channel on the About section. Shoot me an email about it in the business inquiries. So, yeah. So, again, thank you, Christa, for hopping on the show. Thank you, Editor Son, for making sure audio has gone pretty smoothly. And for those who watch until the very end, I thank you so much for letting this, for making this possible for me. I know this was a little bit of a tangent by tangent episode today, but I hope that it was okay, and I hope that you enjoyed this show for tonight. So, this is it for now. My name is Jan-Marini Pacleb, and I've been your host. This is Christa Soliven.
Christa Soliven.
And we will be signing off for tonight. Thank you. Bye.